The shuttles broke through the cloud layer in tight formation, their hulls shuddering as thin wisps of ionized particles slid across the viewports. Vestan Reach's fractured sky opened beneath them, streaked with the pale amber of its sun, and the faint glimmer of dust storms still lingering after the devastation. From altitude, the colony ruins sprawled like dark veins across the pale earth, geometric scars jagged and broken, punctuated by the occasional skeletal remains of structures. Inside the ledge's shuttle, Rook watched the feed from the nose cameras, one hand gripping the overhead bar as the craft adjusted its vector. The pilot's voice crackled in his headset, calm and professional. Approach corridor clear, matching trajectory with Langley's shuttle. ETA to landing zone 3 minutes. Through the side viewport, the Langley shuttle held steady alongside them, its newer thrusters cutting cleaner lines through the thin atmosphere. Rook could just make out Caro's silhouette in the forward compartment, helmet resting against his knee as he gestured something to his crew. Their gazes didn't meet, but the parallel flight spoke enough. Old habits of formation, moving as one unit even with the years and secrets between them. Below, the intact science and medical wing came into view. A wedge-shaped building half buried under wind-blown sediment, yet standing defiant amid the collapse. Its walls still gleamed faintly, untouched by the fires that had consumed everything else. Around it, the colony sprawled outward in a sea of destruction. Housing blocks flattened into tangled metal, market squares reduced to dark craters, transit lines ripped and twisted into dead ends. The pilot shifted thrusters, bringing them into a low circle over the site, and the forward feed adjusted to highlight potential landing zones. Rook keyed his mic. Team 1, final checks. 2-minute call. Sergeant Hale's voice came back immediately. Marines sealed and ready. Weapons green. Malin, strapped into a jump seat across from him, looked up from her slate. Portable systems are secure. Air samples still reading low density, but suit integrity will hold. The shuttle banked gently, thrusters flaring as they lined up with a half-intact landing pad adjacent to the science wing. Dust rose in slow spirals as they hovered, settling into the cracked surface with a low hiss of hydraulics. Across the way, the Langley shuttle followed, touching down in perfect sync on a secondary pad 20 meters off. Grounded and locked, the pilot confirmed. The rear hatch opened with a shuddering sigh, warm cabin air giving way to the dry, acrid breath of Vestan Reach. Beyond the ramp, the ground was a pale gray expanse, coated with fine particles that drifted and swirled in the wake of their engines. No vegetation, no movement, just the hollow carcasses of a colony that had once housed thousands. Rook stepped down first, his suit's filters kicking in as his boots crunched softly against the layer of dust. He swept his visor from left to right, the HUD feeding back environmental readings. Radiation minimal, oxygen thin, particulate density elevated. The ruins loomed around them, shattered walls jagged against the pale sky. There were no signs of bodies, no scattered remains, only the eerie suggestion of absence. Caro descended from his own shuttle a moment later, helmet sealed, rifle slung across his chest more out of caution than expectation. He came to stand beside Rook, surveying the landscape. Hell of a place, Caro muttered over the comms, his voice crackling faintly. Rook didn't answer immediately. His eyes traced the distant skyline where a once tall administrative tower now leaned at an impossible angle, its upper floors sheared away. All of it was coated in that same strange dust, soft drifts forming against broken walls like snow. The two teams formed up, Marines taking point with rifles raised, scanning the derelict approaches. Hale gave a quick hand signal, and the formation split, one half moving to secure the perimeter while the other advanced toward the science wing. The thin wind stirred faint eddies across the landing pad, whispering through jagged openings in the ruined structures. As they moved out, Rook and Caro walked together at the lead, their HUD markers flashing shared data as they approached the science wing's sealed access doors. The building's outer walls were marred by surface impacts but largely intact, streaked with ash and that strange gray residue. Every step stirred faint clouds that drifted in the weak gravity before settling again. Feels abandoned, Caro said quietly. It is, Rook replied, eyes still scanning. But stay sharp. We don't know what's waiting inside. The Marines fanned out around the entrance, motion detectors sweeping the shadows while Malin hung back with her equipment crate, already cataloging readings. The faint hum of their suits filled the silence as the ruined colony stretched out around them, a graveyard of structures and unanswered questions. The side access hatch resisted at first, its seals warped by time and heat, but a Marine with a powered cutter made quick work of the obstruction. The door screeched as it parted, revealing a narrow corridor beyond, lit only by their suit lamps. Dust drifted in thin streams as they advanced, the beams cutting through a haze that had lain undisturbed for months. Malin was at the front of the technical team, her slate tucked against her chest as she studied structural readouts. Atmospheric readings show minimal pressure retention, she reported over the comms, enough that the internal environment might be preserved. "Move in," Rook ordered. The Marines slipped through first, rifles sweeping side to side, HUD markers flaring as motion detectors updated. The interior was deathly quiet, a muted echo of life that had stopped without warning. Panels lined the corridor walls, some blackened by scorch marks, others still intact with faintly glowing indicators. As they moved deeper, Malin attached a small power relay to a junction box. With a low hum, emergency lighting flickered along the ceiling, casting a dim amber glow over dust-coated surfaces. They stepped into what had once been a reception area. Desks overturned, chairs scattered as if left in a rush. A terminal blinked steadily in standby mode, its last command frozen mid-input. Malin moved quickly, brushing away a layer of grime to access the interface, while Rook scanned the room, taking in the remnants of life. A half-crushed cup, a pen discarded on the floor, a coat draped over a railing. The team pressed on into a wider corridor that branched into multiple wings. Signs in faded script indicated medical bays, imaging suites, and labs. The emergency lights revealed overturned gurneys, medical slates left on counters with readouts still displayed, graphs of heart rates that had flatlined without conclusion. An alarm indicator on the wall blinked a steady warning no one had ever silenced. "This place was evacuated in a hurry," Caro murmured over the comms, stepping past a cluster of discarded medical kits. His tone was quieter now, a touch of disbelief beneath the professionalism. Malin ignored him, moving toward a set of double doors marked with the emblem for diagnostic imaging. She keyed in a bypass code from her slate, and with a groan the doors opened. Inside, rows of machinery stood untouched, their surfaces coated with dust but otherwise pristine. She moved among them like someone rediscovering long-lost tools, running her scanner over control panels and connection ports. "Systems are intact," she reported, a note of satisfaction in her voice. "Some of the auxiliary power cells have degraded, but we can reroute with portable units. These scanners are generations ahead of what we have on the ledge. If we bring them online, we could—" She caught herself, realizing she was saying more than she should. Caro noticed. He stepped closer, helmet lights sweeping across the room. "You're very interested in lab gear for a simple recon mission," he observed. His voice carried no accusation, but there was a pointed curiosity there, something sharper than idle talk. Rook turned from where he had been checking an access panel and met Caro's gaze through the visors. "There are things we need to understand," he said evenly, his voice calm but closed. "That's all you need to know right now." Caro's eyes lingered on him, searching for cracks in the response, but Rook gave him nothing further. Malin continued her work, plugging in a relay and coaxing a power surge into one of the imaging bays. Lights blinked to life, monitors displaying startup sequences that hadn't run in years. The soft whir of internal systems hummed in the background, a strange echo of normalcy in a place that was anything but. The Marines kept their perimeter tight, scanning doorways and intersections, but their posture relaxed slightly as it became clear there were no immediate threats. A few of them exchanged glances, their helmet cams picking up the same unsettling details, the hastily abandoned workstations, the eerie sense of preservation. One Marine swept a gloved hand over a counter and left a clear streak in the dust, shaking his head in silence. Malin crouched by a console, reviewing the readouts as they stabilized. "Diagnostics are running," she said. "We could interface external data once the systems are stable." Rook acknowledged her with a nod but didn't look away from Caro. The Langley captain's presence was steady, a familiar shadow beside him, but there was something in Caro's posture that suggested more than idle curiosity. He was absorbing every detail, filing it away. Rook felt it, the quiet press of unspoken questions. But he kept his own thoughts locked down. The team spread through the diagnostic bay, checking other terminals, opening supply lockers, cataloging equipment that had survived the catastrophe outside. The faint hum of reawakened systems mingled with the occasional crackle of static over the comms, the only sounds in a place frozen in time. Caro drifted closer to one of the terminals Malin had activated, studying the readouts. He didn't comment further, but Rook caught the subtle tilt of his head, as if committing the layout to memory. Malin glanced at Rook briefly, uncertain if she'd already said too much, and he gave a minute shake of his head. "Keep working, keep quiet." As they moved deeper into the wing, the lighting improved in patches, fed by the portable relays the techs deployed. Door after door opened to reveal rooms filled with diagnostic machines, surgical bays, and containment cabinets, all eerily untouched. The sense of abandonment pressed in on them, but the evidence of functionality was undeniable. Whatever had happened to the colony hadn't reached this place. Not in the physical sense. Rook trailed a gloved hand over a console edge, leaving a clear line through the grime. This equipment could help them. He knew it, but Caro's presence was a constant weight. Whatever steps they took next, they'd have to tread carefully. Caro lingered near one of the dormant terminals, his helmet lamp casting long shadows across the diagnostic bay. The Marines had moved ahead to clear the next section, leaving the two commanders momentarily apart from the rest of the team. Malin busied herself with another power relay, her focus buried in the data streaming across her slate. The low hum of the revived systems filled the room like a heartbeat, steady and unnerving. Rook checked his suit readouts, mostly to keep his hands occupied. He felt Caro's gaze on him even before the man spoke. The older captain's voice came soft over the comms, low enough that it didn't carry beyond them. "You got something you're not telling me, don't you?" Rook stilled, then turned his head slightly, meeting Caro's visor. He said nothing, letting the silence stretch between them, watching for any flicker of intent behind the other man's stance. Caro didn't move, didn't press immediately, just held Rook's attention with that quiet, searching stillness. The weight of the room seemed to grow heavier. Caro's exhale crackled softly through the channel. "You don't have to say anything," he went on, his voice measured, thoughtful. "A couple of months back I was on patrol out on the fringe, near Sector 219C. I didn't see it myself, but I heard the rumors. Colony wiped out with no trace. Nothing left to recover. No bodies, no distress call. Company swept it all under the rug before anyone could even ask questions." Rook blinked once behind his visor. He kept his expression still, but his mind reeled. Sector 219C. He had never seen that incident in any dispatch or after-action report. The implication hit like a dull blow to the gut. This wasn't the first time. Whatever had happened here on Vestan Reach, whatever had erased 15,000 people, wasn't unique. Caro tilted his head slightly, as though reading Rook's silence. "I know that look," Caro said quietly. "The one you get when the pieces don't fit. I don't know what you're holding back, Rook, but I can feel it, and I know you wouldn't hold it unless you had orders to." Rook's hand flexed against the edge of the console, the dust leaving a smear on his glove. He still said nothing, but the tension in his chest tightened with every second. Orders, secrets, the sealed corridor on his own ship. It was too much to parse in the middle of a dead colony. Yet Caro's words carried an edge of solidarity, not accusation. The other captain wasn't demanding answers. He was offering context, a breadcrumb of shared suspicion. Malin's voice cut across the channel as she reported a stable power feed, her tone businesslike and unaware of the quiet exchange behind her. Caro didn't look away from Rook as he spoke again, softer this time, as if confiding a truth he wasn't sure he should share. "I've been in this company long enough to know when they're hiding something. Whatever happened here, it wasn't just an accident. And if you're caught in the middle of that, then so am I, whether command likes it or not." Rook finally broke the stare, turning his visor back toward the darkened corridor ahead. He didn't answer, not here, not yet. But the thought of Sector 219C burned in his mind, a phantom colony erased from history. His chest felt tight in the recycled air, a knot of anger and uncertainty twisting together. Caro let the silence settle. He didn't press further, didn't need to. The implication lingered between them, heavy and unspoken, as the faint whir of machines carried on around them like ghosts of a world that no longer existed. The lab had fallen into a quiet rhythm. Malin crouched beside one of the consoles, her gloved fingers dancing over the interface as she worked to stabilize the processors. Kel, leaning against a cabinet, was methodically extracting data cores from auxiliary ports, each one carefully labeled and slotted into a sealed case. The machines responded with sluggish compliance, their dim displays blinking back to life after years of dormancy. Across the room, a tech officer from the ledge, Yorin, his suit marked with a faded engineering insignia, swept a handheld scanner slowly over the floor. He was cataloging trace materials for contamination reports, nothing more than standard procedure. His voice broke the silence, flat and routine. "Running environmental analysis, picking up elevated particulate density." He adjusted the sensor dial and took another reading near a supply cabinet. Mostly silicates, some carbon residue, unknown organic traces. "Wait." The comm line crackled as Yoren frowned behind his visor. Stand by. That's odd. He crouched, sweeping the scanner closer to the dusty surface. Rerunning the sample. Okay, this is strange. Organic signatures are significant. Cross-referencing, markers look similar to human. Malin's head snapped up from her console, her eyes narrowing. Yoren, confirm that! Already running again, Yoren replied, pulling microparticles directly off the intake filter. Readings showed degraded protein chains, fragmentary nucleotides. Malin, these match human DNA strands within acceptable variants. A chill settled over the room. Rook stepped closer, visor tilted toward Yoren. Say that again. Yoren straightened slowly, his helmet lamp sweeping across the floor where their boots had already tracked clear lines through the gray film. The dust, he said, his voice quieter now. It's not just debris, it's organic matter, and it's human. Malin stood abruptly, her slate clutched to her chest. Run a tertiary analysis, she said quickly, her voice tight. Check for contamination. Are you certain? I've triple-checked, Yoren murmured. Sample integrity's solid. The scanner's not lying. Kel froze with a core in his hands, eyes lifting to meet Caro's visor across the room. The hum of the machines continued as if nothing had changed, but a creeping dread seeped into the air. Rook felt it, heavy and cold, settling in his gut like lead. He looked down at the dust swirling faintly under his boots, the thin gray clouds that shifted with every step, every breath of air through the suit filters. Malin's voice came over the comms again, softer, as if she didn't want to say it out loud. This dust, it's them, she swallowed audibly. It's the colony. A stunned silence followed. Even the Marines at the door turned, helmets angling toward the techs as the words sank in. 15,000 people, families, workers, medics, engineers, reduced to particles so fine they clung to every surface, settled in every crevice. Rook's chest tightened as he stared at the gray haze drifting in the beam of his helmet light. Caro moved slowly, almost unconsciously, sweeping his glove over a countertop and watching the faint cloud rise and scatter. His voice was low, hoarse. All of them? Malin hesitated, but her answer was steady. I can't be certain, but based on volume distribution, yes. There are no remains because there's nothing left to find. Whatever hit them didn't just kill. It destroyed everything organic down to the molecular level. Kel set the data core down, his usually sure hands suddenly careful. That's not any weapon I've ever heard of, he muttered, his voice tight. No, Caro said almost to himself, but it matches the rumors. His gaze flicked to Rook. A colony wiped clean, nothing left but trace elements. Rook's mind churned. He thought of the sealed corridors on the ledge, the black tier tags, Volka's careful words. He thought of Sector 219C of Caro's quiet confession. This wasn't a random attack. It was part of something far larger, something hidden. He forced himself to focus, to keep his tone level even as his hands curled into fists inside his gloves. We mark it, Rook said finally, his voice steady despite the storm inside. Malin, pull what samples you can. Yoren, isolate and seal the filters. We need that data intact. Malin nodded, already pulling containment tubes from her kit. Yoren methodically collected dust samples, sealing them into canisters with a care usually reserved for volatile compounds. Around them, the rest of the team moved in a kind of numb efficiency, every motion quieter than before, every step a little more cautious, as if afraid to disturb the ashes of the dead. Rook looked out across the bay once more. The dust was everywhere, swirling faintly in the cold, thin air, drifting through the light like a ghost of the life that had once thrived here. The horror of it eclipsed every other thought, every plan or mission objective. For a moment, even the tension with Caro vanished beneath the enormity of what they had found. Kel was crouched by a terminal deeper in the diagnostic suite, fingers moving carefully over a panel that had been dormant for years. He'd managed to bypass several encrypted submenus, and now lines of text and faded schematics scrolled across the display. The glow reflected off his visor as he leaned in closer, running a fingertip along the edge of the cracked screen. Commander, he said after a long pause, his voice crackling through the comms. You're going to want to see this. Rook moved to his side, boots crunching faintly over the dust. Caro followed a step behind, visor tilted toward the screen as Kel expanded the diagram. The holographic overlay flared and resolved into a schematic of the facility, most of it matching what they had already seen. The medical bays, imaging suites, storage levels. But another layer unfolded below the main grid. Stacked rectangles, access shafts, a network of corridors marked with a crimson overlay. These sublevels, Kel explained, tapping at the diagram, aren't listed on the general facility map. They're deep, almost a kilometer down. And look here. He highlighted a hatch icon marked with a bold seal symbol. This is a sealed access point. Looks like a vertical transit shaft leading deeper. It's locked out, power feeds cut. But the architecture, this was intentional. Someone didn't just abandon it, they buried it. Malin drifted closer, her brow furrowed as she studied the overlay. No environmental feeds, no comm logs. That entire section's been scrubbed. Caro let out a low whistle. You've got hidden levels under a medical wing. Power cut. And nobody mentioned this in the brief. He looked at Rook, his tone sharpening. We should see where that leads. Rook stayed silent for a moment, his eyes fixed on the crimson hatch icon. His mind was still tangled in the revelation of the dust, in the weight of 15,000 lives reduced to particles. And now this, secret sublevels, sealed access, a deeper layer to a facility already full of questions. He forced himself to focus, to remember the plan, the 2-hour window, the growing unease gnawing at his chest. Not today, Rook said at last, voice firm. We mark it, we log it, and we move. Caro turned his helmet toward him, visor catching the faint glow of the screen. You're sure? We're standing on something big, Rook. This isn't going to stay buried forever. I'm sure, Rook said, and there was no room for argument in his tone. We've already pushed our luck. 2 hours was the plan, and we're not staying 1 second longer. Malin, copy the schematics. Kel, mark the access point. We'll revisit when we're better prepared. For a heartbeat. Caro didn't move. Rook could almost feel the weight of the man's scrutiny through the helmet, the silent calculation, the unspoken challenge. Then Caro exhaled softly. Fair enough, but you know as well as I do. Whatever's down there, Command already knows. Rook didn't respond. He turned away, watching as Malin saved the schematics to her slate, and Kel placed a beacon marker on the access panel. The Marines regrouped at the corridor's mouth, rifles steady, eyes scanning the shadows as the teams gathered their gear. The hum of revived systems faded behind them as relays were disconnected, the machines slipping back into silence as if nothing had disturbed them at all. One by one, they filed back toward the entry point, their boots leaving fresh tracks in the gray film that coated the floor. The dust swirled in the thin air, drifting lazily in the beams of their helmet lights. Rook led the way, Caro falling in beside him, neither man speaking as they retraced their steps through the corridors. The weight of what they carried, data cores, environmental samples, and the knowledge of what had happened here, pressed down heavier than their suits. The hatch loomed ahead, faint light from outside seeping through the cracked seals. The Marines pushed it open, the stark daylight of Vestan Reach flooding the chamber. As they stepped back out onto the shattered ground, the ruined colony stretched before them, the same silent expanse as before, only now filled with an entirely different meaning. Caro paused at the threshold, looking back once into the dim corridor. This place, he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. It's not done with us yet. Rook didn't answer. He motioned the team forward, the shuttles waiting on their pads, the dust curling in their wake as they began the walk back, carrying with them the unanswered questions buried deep beneath their feet.